Welcome back, everybody. Today we have an awesome guest, Joey Nieves, a Cleveland native, people from Cleveland, right? So you guys are really going to enjoy this. He went from home invasions to helping the homeless. Seriously, though, Joey has a very interesting story. His 15th time in treatment was finally the charm, and that's when he really turned his life around. I know that you're all going to really be interested in everything that he has to say and all the work that he's doing now. We're talking about a person who did nothing but construction their entire lives, who is able to jump into community work and really work his way to, the top. He is the top of the top, and he has built so many programs and done so many amazing things. So I know that you're all going to really enjoy listening. As always, comment down below if you have any questions. We'll be checking, and any feedback that you have, go like us on Instagram, go show love to the Lord's place, and care about you guys so much. Thanks for being with us. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Back Alley Chat, or AKA Peer Pressure with Allie and Joey. I'm excited for today's episode. Joey is somebody that I get to work with all the time. And when I first started my job doing the homeless services, he was one of the first people that I met. And I felt so much better knowing that there was another person who was in recovery doing the same work. It's just like a bond that you have, right? So I was so grateful to have met Joey, and now we talk all the time. We work at different organizations, which is honestly pretty great because we get to collab. And he is a Cleveland native and has a really awesome story. So hello, Joey.
Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? A Cleveland guy here in Boca. I'm loving it. I'm ready for this podcast.
Yeah. So, okay, Joey, tell me, how did you end up in Florida from Cleveland?
How did I end up in Florida? Wow, that's a long version.
I know, it's a long story. So basically, we know you were in recovery from what?
So I'm in recovery from alcohol and drugs. I was a vicious crackhead, alcoholic, pretty much like a dumpster, dude. Like anything you gave me, I would take it because I tried to numb my feelings. And from a young age, I was incarcerated. So I feel like that's what stemmed my addiction from, the feeling of the victim stage where I'm a victim. I'm never going to be able to be anybody. So I ended up coming to Florida after about 22 years of a vicious cycle of just criminal activities and also a vicious junkie. That's all I was. All I cared about was getting high and numbing my feelings and trying to play the victim basically in my life. So took a plane out to Florida, ended up in Pahokee in the middle of the cane fields.
What? Oh, at the detox that used to be out there? Okay.
Royal Detox.
Yeah, they were awesome. They're still around in Washington, I think.
Yeah. And then I worked from there into PHPIOP, the whole treatment thing. And I'm definitely not a white chip wonder. This was my 15th treatment center.
Wow.
I did 14 in Cleveland. Mostly court ordered, but this was the first time that I was just so broken down that I decided to do it on my own and ended up here. And I've been here for 6 years ever since. And I love it here. And I'm never going back to my old stomping grounds because I've built something here. I always say, I always wanted to sit at other people's tables, but when I came down here this time, I'm like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to build my own table, man. I sit at my own table.
You do.
So.
And I get to sit with you at some of the tables at work, and Joey always lets them know what's up, and it's really cool to have somebody who struggled for such a long time and really understands the plight of the people that we're working with, and who also is like a director, because you have really worked your way up. I was wondering, what work did you do before you started outreach?
So my entire life, I was a construction worker. I did anything you could think of: concrete, carpentry, drywall, the whole construction thing. I was a union laborer in Cleveland because the union's huge up there. And that's why I had good insurance to come to Florida. It was only because of that.
Thank you, union.
Yeah. So I had never done anything remotely close to homeless outreach. I was offered a position as a peer specialist, and I had no idea what it was. And they were like, you're going to make $14.50 an hour. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not doing it. But, my God kept pushing me towards it, saying, this is what you need to do. And I believe that all greatness in any human comes from God. And that's what I did. I started at the bottom and I beat the streets of West Palm Beach for about a year. I got promoted to the supervisor position. And then from there, I just kept moving up and up and up. And my story, I believe, is great to tell others because I have a GED. I don't have a college degree. I'm not a clinician. I believe, don't quote me, but I believe I'm the first director at my organization that does not have a college degree. And it's just awesome. It's an awesome story for kids to know that, like, if you work hard and you put your head down, nobody cares. Don't care about what other people think about you. I really don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me. I don't. And the reason for that is because they're not the ones that got me where I am. It's my life and being forged in the fire that got me where I'm at. So
I hear that. I think it's so cool because I remember an Allie that thought that I never thought I would do really much. I wasn't sure what I could do. You know, I knew I had this list of felonies on my record and that I had come from I was just thinking the other day, I was like, wow, I think my dysfunctional childhood has affected me as a human. Like 33 years later, right? And I remember my first job in sales where I realized that I'm actually capable of doing more than I thought. Right? I was like, oh, I don't have to be like a waitress. Like I can make money and I don't need a degree. Like I can keep going. And ever since my boss, this guy, Jimmy, ever since he flipped that switch in my brain, I had been like going, like nothing was holding me back. Right? I was like, wow, as long as I can sell stuff, talk to people and use my personal story, then whatever, sky's the limit. So, okay. So you're doing homeless outreach. The streets of West Palm Beach, which are my streets now, buddy. Whenever I see you over there, I go, what you doing in my hood? You know? And now, so when you keep moving up, because we do the Peer Leadership Council in Palm Beach County. And 10 years ago, I had no clue what a peer was. Explain to us, what's a peer? Because that's why I didn't want to name it peer pressure, because I go, a lot of people don't know what a peer is.
Yeah, and that's what makes our team so unique. So a peer to me is someone who has lived experience, meaning that it's somebody who has either experienced homelessness, incarceration, recovery from alcohol and drugs, mental health, all those things that make up a peer is somebody who's been through it and then who has come out the other side. You know, I always tell people, you know, when I'm working with somebody and they're like, well, I dug myself in such a deep hole. And I'm like, well, that's cool because I know how to get out of that hole now. I've been in that hole plenty of times, bro. So a peer to me is someone who uses that lived experience as a tool or even as a weapon to give hope to the hopeless, strength to the weak, and just lift up people that are down in the dumps. You know what I mean? And it's different. It's just a different way of connecting with people. So that's what a peer is to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We hold our own value beyond clinicians and people with degrees who learned all of this stuff from books that people wrote from reading other books, really. 100%. That's what a lot of it's like. I know me and you, we have a hard time with some clinicians because they're just so detached from the reality of the situation, or they just look at it in a way that we don't. We see it differently, and we're very valuable. So I hope anyone listening to this who is a peer and has those lived experience know that you can take that with you and you can make such a big impact in your community. Because people always ask me like, oh, we need people like you here in whatever city. And I'm always like, well, I'm sure there are people like me there. And that's why I have so many individuals coming on the podcast to show there's so many people making a difference. We just have to show everybody how exactly to do it. Yeah. And it could be a lot. You could advocate. You know, I know that you do some advocacy yourself. Yeah. You like to rail against the city.
I really believe that not all clinicians are bad. You know, I don't think they're all bad, but I think that they're, you know, conditioned to put people into a box because of what they've read in a book. You know, oh, well, he's depressed and he laid in bed on a weekend. That's depression. No, join the club. The whole fucking world does that sometimes because they're depressed. And I think that peers look at it in a different perspective because we actually study the human condition, not just what we read in a book. You know what I mean? And we can tell people that you can start from now. If you live in the past, you're going to die in the past. If you live in the future, you're going to be anxious and you're never going to be able to enjoy the beautiful things in life. Like trees and birds and butterflies. I never saw that shit before.
I know it.
Now I'm like, damn, this is a beautiful day today. I can actually see the birds chirping instead of like worrying about having a God that was a freaking piece of crack or a bag of heroin or something. That was my God for years. So like to be able to see beauty in the world today, it is just an awesome thing to me, you know?
I agree 100%. I totally agree with that because I think about it all the time, and I think about all the stuff that I didn't take time to think about for so long or to see for so long or to even appreciate, whether it's about myself or people around me. So how do you think working in outreach has changed you? Did you change at all? Because I remember you telling me stories, and I can relate to this because when you're out there in the street, people try you hard, and it is hard to more from the people we used to be to a professional individual who can be respected and can make a difference in their community, right? Because our first thought wrong sometimes. Yep. And so tell us, Joey, how did you do it? Because I remember you telling me a story with a guy trying to try you, and you're like, I'm going to take this work shirt off right now.
So being that I grew up in the streets my whole life in Cleveland, Ohio, it's not a place where, you know, you could get away with kind of talking trash to people because people will hit you in the mouth. So when I came here, it was like kind of like, who are you talking to? You know, and I had to think in my head, like, dude, you're not the person that you used to be. You know, you're here to help these people and they're just projecting their crisis onto you because you're the only one here. And they don't understand how to be grateful and how to, you know, accept the help that you're giving. Remember where you were at that time. So to me, it was like, yeah, I want to take my shirt off and be like, I'm off the clock. Like, let's do this. And, you know, I used to be the guy that'll fight you in a dark alley with no flashlight, but that's not me anymore. Now I understand that people are going through hard times, and that's changed me in my heart to where I can be like, all right, dude, like, you're just going through a hard time. I'm going to let you slide, and I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to help you out again. And that's what truly makes me, in my opinion, a powerful person, because I don't have to act in anger. That's the easiest emotion to have. Yeah. You know, to be able to walk away and know I could have effed this dude up if I wanted to, but I'm going to help him instead. That's like a great power to have to me. Yeah.
And it's kind of like when you're having an issue with somebody, and I believe this is the greatest tool you can do is pray for them, right? And it's kind of the same idea when it comes to doing outreach, because of course, same thing. When I'm out there, I got people that threatening to murder me, being crazy. And I had an issue with this individual, but it wasn't nothing crazy. But for them, you know, they felt bad about it the next day. And they came up to me and they're like, hey, just want to, like, am I still on the list for housing? I was like, yeah, of course. Like, I'm never going to stop helping you. You can do whatever you want. Like, we're going to be here, you know, but I appreciate it. And yes, you are. So I'll talk to you later.
I think it's a great thing too, when people, you know, they're like, well, I don't want to let you down, Mr. Joey. And it's like, you ain't letting me down, dude. Like, I got a place to stay. I fought through I fight my demons every day, and I do what I need to do to stay right within myself, spiritually, mentally, and in my body. You know what I mean? I do things outside of work that people don't understand too. Peers have to do things outside of work in order to be okay. So I tell people, you're not letting me down, dude. You're letting yourself down. You need to do this for you, not for me, because I'm going to be happy for you. But if you do it for me, you're not going to achieve self-efficacy and longevity in your recovery. It's not going to stick. Yeah, it's not going to stick.
What are the things that you do outside of work to work on you? Because I know at your organization, you have a lot of peers that work under you guys, strictly hire peers, which I think is awesome. And but peers do need to take care of themselves, or we have the risk of not being able to help others because we're going to need to help again, right? So what are some things that you suggest to your staff or that you do yourself to feel better and be able to take on a lot of the mental warfare sometimes it can be throughout the day?
Well, I believe that I encourage my staff to do meditation. I encourage them to be spiritual, and I don't encourage them to believe in my God. They don't have to believe in what I believe in. But I tell them, if you don't have spirituality, that's when you're going to be lost, because I was lost for so many years without that. So I encourage spirituality, meditation. I encourage hobbies. I encourage them to have friends outside of work friends. And for myself personally, I'm in a 12-step program of recovery, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I also see therapists twice a month.
Oh, you do see a therapist?
I do see a therapist, and he is very awesome, and he's one of the clinicians that doesn't try to put you in a box. You know, he's kind of like gives me suggestions. You know, most therapists, I just go in there and I yell at them the whole time. I'm like, like, fuck this person. And then they're like, all right, time's up. Like, great job. And I'm like, you didn't even tell me shit.
Right.
Like,
tell me something. I know. I went to a therapist, and this isn't a good thing. I don't suggest other people do it, but I really haven't had a therapist since treatment, which was 14 years ago. And my therapist in treatment was literally on the show Hoarders. Like, she had her own mental problems. Okay. So I don't know how effective that was at that time. I made it, but I think it was mainly through my 12-step program. And so maybe 6 months ago, I was like, well, maybe I'll try it there, because I'm like, I know these things are in me that make me react to things the way that I do and all of that other stuff that make up Allie as a person. So I'd like to learn more about it, right? So I go through my insurance. I'm like trying to find somebody, and I find this guy, and I go to him, and it was kind of funny because it made me think about when we do our assessments with our clients, right? My assessment, they don't even know I'm doing it. We're talking, we're having a conversation. Yeah. I get all the information I need. I fill it out later or whatever it is, or they don't even know I'm filling it out. But when I walked into this guy's office, he was like filling out paperwork just like that, asking me all these questions. And like, I had to have a diagnosis. Like, I had to tell him I was depressed or anxious. And I was trying to say, well, bro, I don't feel that way, but I know something's wrong, right? Like, but I can't tell you that that's my truth. So yeah. I didn't really see him very long because I was just like, man, this ain't working for me. So
maybe I'll give you my guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I need a good one. So that's cool. So you go to your therapy, you do your 12 steps. I know you work out a lot.
Yeah, I do. I work out at least 6 days a week, and it's not for my body to look good. Yeah, my body looks good, but it's because I want to keep my mental health. When I'm working out, my mental health is in order, and then my spirituality follows. I watch the sunrise 5 times a week at Lake Worth Beach.
Wow.
I wake up early. Go there to sit with my God, and that really helps me out to, kind of conquer the day and conquer whatever's going on in my life. It puts me at peace, you know what I mean?
Did you grow up in a religious household?
I did not. So when I was 5 years old in kindergarten, I was in a Catholic school, and I remember my dad couldn't afford to pay for all 4 of his children to go to Catholic school, so we went to public school. Never was forced to go to church. My parents didn't read us the Bible. They believed in a God, but they didn't force it on us, which I think is better in the long run because I didn't resent God as much as others that I know who it was forced down their throat. You know what I mean? So, but today I am a very spiritual person, and I believe in my God. But I also believe not to force one's God on others, unless someone asks me, then I'll tell them what I believe in. But
yeah, no, I didn't grow up in a religious house either. And I did go to Catholic school for a couple years. And I remember, I've always been a defiant kid, like a big mouth, right? So I remember being in class and I was like, I'm not even Catholic, because I had like religious studies or something. And the teacher, I was like, I'm not even Catholic. So later that night, the PTO moms start calling my house to talk to my dad. And they said, your daughter said she wasn't Catholic. What religion do you guys, whatever to? And my dad's like, I don't know. Today might be a Presbyterian. Tomorrow it might be an atheist. Like, what does it matter, lady? Yeah. Why are you asking me? Yeah. My kid's allowed to be whatever she wants to be, just as long as she knows there's something bigger out there that cares about her and that loves her. And that's kind of how I always grew up. So I'm very grateful for that, because when I was introduced to recovery, I didn't have any of these weird ideas of God or what he was, or that he was a mean God or whatever. I didn't have any of those preconceived notions of a higher power. So that was really great. So, okay, you grew up, you got 3 brothers and sisters. What are you, the middle child?
I'm the baby.
Of course you're the baby. Of course you're the baby. Okay.
And I got 3 brothers and a sister. They're all older than me. One of them is from a different mother. He's older. He's like 62. And then I have 2 brother and a sister in their 50s, and then a brother 1 year older than me. So my mom and dad were like getting busy, pretty old. You know what I mean? My mom's about 84 now. And
what?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She had me when she was about 40 years old. And,
wow.
Yeah. My father was 8 years older than her. So
you grade their hair so bad. Oh my God. Your poor parents.
Yeah.
When did you start getting into trouble? Or were you a good kid?
No, I would say I was a decent kid until I made it to about the 8th grade. That summer going from 8th to 9th grade, I started seeing that my brother and I, we never wanted for anything, but my parents weren't, well off. So we were wearing like hand-me-downs and like Pro Wings from Payless, and like dudes would make fun of us. We had tube socks and shit. So like people would make fun of us. Me and my brother were like, well, you can make fun of us, but I bet we whoop your ass. Mm-hmm. And we would fight a lot. And because like the kids with the nice stuff would talk, make fun of us, try to bully us. And we were like the anti-bullies. Like we would beat up the bullies that picked on kids. But then that got me into trouble at an early age. And I started seeing people in the streets like, man, this dude's driving a nice car. This guy's got like all these nice watches and chains and drug dealers. I'm from Cleveland. So that's what I wanted. So I like pulled up on one of them. I'm 14 years old. I'm like, yo, I want what you got, bro. Like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, little man, he's like, here's a pack. I'm going to show you how to pack it up. I'm going to show you how to weigh it. I'm going to show you how to do everything, ride around and sell it. And we'll see how good you do. So like 2 hours later, I'm back. He's like, you sold all that? And I say, yeah, man. And he said, all right, we can do business. Right. And then that led me into a group of men who were a little bit older than me. I wouldn't say they were men. They were like 19.
Right.
But I was young.
But it seems like they're old when you're that age.
When you're 14, they're grown.
Right.
So, and then gang activity began for me. And I thought that they loved me. And I knew my family loved me. Don't get me wrong. My family was a very loving family, but my dad worked 2 jobs. Mm-hmm. So he was never home. Mom did the best she could, but, mom couldn't whoop me. Right. so I would like weigh the options. Like, I'm going to come home at 3 a.m. When dad wakes up, he's going to whoop me at 6 a.m. and then he's going to go to work. Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. So I started a life of crime. It was like home invasions, burglaries, robberies. They would send us to do it because we were underage. They're like, if you get caught, you won't be in as much trouble. You won't be in as much trouble.
Right.
So we would, they would tell us where to go, who's going to be there, how many people are going to be in the house, where the stuff's at. This is at the age of 14, 15.
Wow.
Committing, armed robberies and stuff like that. So we thought we were on top of the world. Like, oh, we got $5,000. Oh, we're rich.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
I got the Hirachis. I got the shell toes. I got, back in the day, it was IOUs and, the little gear that you got back in the day, cross colors, Carl Kanai.
You're old.
Yeah, I'm
bro.
old. So we had all that stuff and we thought we were doing big things until that one day when I got caught and they put me in, we used to call it the Deuce because it was on East 22nd Street in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. That was the juvenile detention center.
How was that? I hated DJJ. It was worse than regular jail for me, for real. I hated it.
100%. DJJ, it was a bunch of young kids, obviously, that were not mature. And I fought more in probably like the 6 months that I did in DJJ than I did in 7 years in prison. And it's like a castle. So it was like an old castle looking building and you could see like a gloomy cloud over it. Even like on a sunny day, this fucking place looked like a dungeon. So, and it's not, when you go to a place like that, the first night, everybody cries. I don't care how tough you are. And everybody waits for it. And they all did it themselves so they don't judge you. But it's not about like being in there, the physical aspect of it. It's about all the comforts of life are taken from you. You can't have the sheets you want. Right. You can't have the food you want.
Can't even lay in bed. I remember they used to kick us out of our rooms at like 6 a.m. and then we just only had those plastic, most uncomfortable chairs for the rest of the day to sit in. You're not laying down. You're not doing anything you want to do, period.
So the chairs were funny. In the Deuce, there was like bigger chairs that they called the Cadillacs, and then the smaller chairs were the Cutlasses. But everybody claimed one. So when you first got there, you didn't know that. So you're sitting in
that happened to me.
Yeah, and dude's like, that's my chair. I'm like, the fuck you talking about, homie? That's my chair. I'm sitting in it. He's like, and he punches me. So now I fall back in the chair. I roll out of the chair and I'm fighting this dude. And then I'm thinking the guards are going to come, and the dude's kind of big. And it hurt when he hit me. So I'm like, fighting them, whatever. We're wrestling, we're rolling around. I'm thinking the guards are going to break it up. They're like, no, go behind the pillars and fight it out. So these guards
What?
like let you fight. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So now I'm like, oh shit, I gotta fight this big ass dude. And I did okay. I had a black eye and stuff, lip swole, but I held my own. And that was the first time that I really felt like some type of respect, but it wasn't the respect that I want today. It was the respect of like, oh, I'm a badass. Like nobody's going to fuck with me.
Right.
And that's what I think stemmed my criminal mindset moving forward in my life. Like that was what I sought. Right. I didn't seek respect of being like a good brother or a good son or a good husband.
Fear.
Yeah. Fear.
Fear, the respect that comes via fear. And I used to be that's all I wanted. That was my life goals, was that guy with the nice chains and all that stuff. I was like, that is what I want. Like I was so excited about it. And I was like clear in my vision and I always tell the story how me and my best friend Zach, we were sitting on his patio smoking cigarettes, and we were like, what do we want to do with our lives? And he was like, I want to work at an animal hospital and steal all the ketamine. And I was like, and I want to be a drug dealer, and I want all the drugs. I don't want to be just selling one, I want to be a one-stop shop. That was my goal. And a couple years later, I'm in jail for drug trafficking, and Zach had been stealing tons of ketamine from every animal hospital in Palm Beach County. And well, he was stuck in a K-hole for maybe a year. This shit's, I don't even know how they use it for therapy nowadays. When I hear about ketamine treatment, I'm like, yeah.
I'm good on that.
All right.
I'm good on that.
It's not even enjoyable. It's not like an enjoyable, fun, feel-good drug. Like, yeah. So, okay. So you get out of DJJ and you don't change your life at all. Well, maybe it gets worse, probably, I'm assuming.
It gets worse. I think when you go to a place like that at such a young age and it fucks with your psyche like that, now you have that power trip of like we were just talking about, like I want to be feared. I love when people are scared of me. Like I like to be the guy when they're like, don't invite him to the house party. He's going to fucking punch somebody in the face.
Right.
Like I liked that feeling. And that's crazy, when I think about it now. So I say I went in there like an infant, like a monkey. And I came out like an untamed gorilla. Like I was like hitting the streets like even worse after that.
Yeah.
And that just stemmed me into even a worse criminal lifestyle. I then became, I wasn't Pablo Escobar or anything by any means, but I began to sell a lot of crack cocaine and a lot of cocaine. And I thought I was on top of the world, but then I started using it. But I didn't say I was a junkie. So
how old were you when you actually started using drugs, as opposed to like really using drugs, as opposed to just being trouble, like getting in trouble?
So I was always an alcoholic. I drank all the time. I smoked weed all the time. And then at the age of 21 years old was when I used to call people crackheads because I didn't use cocaine until I was released from prison the first time. So I went to prison at the age of 21, fresh, didn't even spent my birthday in there. I didn't even get to go to the club on my 21st birthday, to celebrate. I was in prison and I was sentenced to 2.5 years in Lorraine Correctional Institution. And then from there, I went to Mansfield, which is like a pretty bad place for a 21-year-old to be. But at that time, I was, like I said, fighting multiple times a week. Fist fights and all that stuff was normal to me. Like,
I have a question. I got to ask you this because you look kind of white.
Yeah.
Okay. When you were in prison, who did you hang out with? So, I guess your last name really gives it away, but you don't have an accent or anything. And I'm like, I didn't even realize you're Hispanic at first. And then now I have you talk to all my clients for me that I can't understand. So how did that work?
I kind of got a drawl, the Cleveland drawl, but I speak Spanish fluently.
You do.
Well, I'm from Cleveland. So when you go to prison, you see all the homies, like someone you haven't seen for 2 years.
Yeah.
That's where they've been.
Yeah.
They've been in prison. Joey, I walked in and I seen about 10 people I knew. Oh. And they're all Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
So we roll together.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I got it. Yeah, you do.
So that's who I ran with in there. And to be honest with you, it made my time a lot smoother because, it was like if I'm fighting, everybody's fighting.
And I think that's the allure of gangs in general, for people, is that they feel like they have a bond with somebody or a connection or even a love that they're not getting other places, you know?
And that was what it was. It was, I felt that they loved me And I knew my parents and my family loved me, but I was so far withdrawn from them because of my past. You know, like my brother resented me, and he told me this not that long ago, that's why he resented me, was because we were best friends, and then I went one way and he went the other way. And I chose the life of the streets over my own brother.
Right.
And I didn't see it that way for so many years. Now I do. You know, I understand why he resented me. I did the entire 7 years altogether that I did in prisons. I only got one visit from my mom and dad.
Wow.
Nobody wrote me. They accepted my phone calls. My mom and dad were always there. They were just older, so they couldn't travel. You know what I mean? But that really fucked with my head, you know, to be like, man, does my family even love me besides my parents? You know what I'm saying? And that was why I had problems with relationships. You know, once I got sober, and even before that, it was like, is this person like faking? Do they love me? Or are they just telling me that and they're just going to abandon me like everybody else abandoned me?
I know. And I like to put people through the trials too. Like, you better stick with me. I don't care what, because that's, to me, is unconditional love. Are you going to love me unconditionally, or are there going to be all these conditions that come out of nowhere when I need it the least? You know, that freaks me out about the relationships. So 7 years, what was your last prison stint for?
So the last time I went to prison was in 2006, and I was released in 2009 when I was 29 years old. And that was for aggravated burglary. I had committed a aggravated burglary, but it was because someone had robbed me and my friends for a safe with some stuff in there that we really wanted back. So then we kind of stealthily entered their apartment and kind of held them against their will, per se, for a while until we actually got, and then he called the police and told him that we robbed him. And I'm like, dude, you robbed, like,
that's street life.
Yeah.
You gotta charge that to the game every time. How dare them? That's crazy.
Yeah, and at the time I thought that, and you know, I always used to think, like, that's why I resented God too when I got out of prison in 2009. I was like, well, if God loved me, why would he keep putting me in prison? And little do I know, it's my own dumbass fault for making those decisions.
And he could have been keeping you alive while you were in there, for all you know.
Yep, and he was. And he was, because when I was in there, a lot of my friends started dropping, like, you know, dropping. Out of the 10 friends that I ran with in like my younger years, let me see, 8 of them are dead, either from being murdered or from overdoses. And then I'm free, and one of my other friends is free. And the rest of them are all gone, man. Like, we're the only 2 here. And if that doesn't tell you something, that we're here for a higher purpose, then I don't know what does, man.
Right.
Because I would have been one of those people. I know that. If I wasn't in there when I was, that was when it was all happening. Like, my brother would talk to me on the phone every once in a while if he was at my mom's. Hey, you know, Carlos is gone. Jeff's gone. Little Chris overdosed in his car on West 25th.
And when you can't do anything about it, when you're even in there, it just hurts even more, you know?
Yeah, and but then to be released from that into the free world, and at the age of 29 to, like, I knew how to do some stuff, but I didn't know how to live as an adult.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
And it's really hard, even if you do everything right, to live as a functioning adult is like, it is so complex. Every year it just feels like it gets more complex and more things we need to pay attention to, and the credit and the this and the buying stuff. And so were you offered any reentry services?
No. So Cleveland, Ohio was a real weird place. Like, if you qualified for these halfway houses when you were released from prison, they would furlough you. Like, you were allowed to leave, like, let's say 6 months before your sentence was up. And I did that the first time. So they furloughed me the first time, sent me to a halfway house called the Oriental House. It's in the middle of the ghetto in the east side of Cleveland. And they put you in there and they tell you got to get a job, you got to work for 6 months. And if you make it through the program, then you don't have to go back to prison. But even if it's like your 5-month, 29-day mark and you like pee dirty or something, they send you back for the rest of your time. That was the only reentry service that I ever received. Now, the second time I was released at the age of 29, they're just like, here's $98. There's the Greyhound bus. Like, have a good one. See you later. Didn't give me no paper saying like, go here, seek services there.
And think about it. That was only after 3 years. And, you know, doing outreach, some of the individuals we see getting released from incarceration have been in there for 20 years. I mean, a long time, their whole life. Nothing's the same as when they went back in. Nothing. And I'll see them at St. Anne's Place catching a shower and they don't know where to go or what to do. And that's in a county where we actually have reentry services because all right, you were doing outreach, but then they moved you to reentry.
Yes.
Because of your background or what? So tell us the story on that.
So I was in outreach and I was the supervisor of the outreach team. And at the time we were working for the city of West Palm Beach and they didn't require a level 2 background check, which is crazy to me. But anyway, so I was working, doing outreach for about a year and a half. And then the new contract we received from the Palm Beach County funding was required a DCF level 2 clearance, meaning that if you did have a record, you had to get a thing called an exemption. So they say you can't be the supervisor. And I lost my shit. I was like, it's fucking bullshit. I fucking made this program, you know? So they moved me to the reentry program, which I thought was even crazier. How you gonna let me enter into facilities where prisoners are at without a level 2 clearance, but I can't talk to a homeless guy sitting on a park bench. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I did reentry services while I was working towards my exemption. And if I showed you my exemption packet, it was like freaking.
How many charges do you have in total?
Well, felony is 6.
Okay. But
they counted other things like disorderly conduct.
Really? You know what? My best friend was just telling, because she's working in reentry now in New Jersey. And she was like, they brought up some like indecent or something really weird. Like not even, she didn't even go to jail for it back in the day. And they brought it up.
Simple assaults, like freaking all types of crazy stuff. And I was getting arrested for like disorderly conduct, like freaking sometimes twice a week. You know what I'm saying? Because I was like a little bit crazy back in my younger years where it was like you said anything and I would just fight
Lose
you.
It. Yeah.
So it took me 7 months to get my exemption. My packet was probably like a foot thick. They finally granted me my exemption. So now I'm exempt and I will always have a level 2 clearance.
Good for you. Did you enjoy reentry?
I loved it. So I loved it. So I got to, it's crazy. I took this thing called moral recognition therapy when I was in prison. That's where it started. It's kind of like a 12-step program, but for prisoners.
Okay.
So it makes you realize like what your patterns were in like in your early teens and your teens and your 20s or however old you are. It goes through like 10-year progressions and stuff like that. So I went through it. I graduated that. And then now I'm facilitating moral recognition therapy at Sago Palm Recovery or Sago Palm Reentry Center out in Pahokee.
That's cool.
So it was cool.
Awesome.
And I got to see some of the guys that got out and they were actually in housing and they were like, man, you really helped me, bro. Like that moral they're like, you're just like one of us, but you're like free now.
Right. Yeah.
Cause I wasn't like uncomfortable going in there. Cause I know that they're just like me.
Yeah.
They're just going through a hard time and they made a mistake or hundreds of mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're a person just like we are. They're not animals. And that's why shame on all you motherfuckers that treated us like animals when we were in those prisons.
For real.
Yeah.
For real.
Because there's people in there that treated us like we were literally animals.
Yeah.
And like we were lesser than and belittle us and tell us, you'll be back. That was my worst.
Me too.
I hated that shit. When you leave, you'll be back. No, I fucking won't.
Yeah, bitch. I know it. Yeah. So, because I want people to know the different options of jobs that are out there for peers. You know, you can work in the reentry services where you actually go into the prisons and you help them come up with like a plan for when they leave, right?
So,
which is very important.
Very important. So like we would
they leave with no phone, they leave with like no money, like.
We would go in and what we would do is 90 days before their release, we would sit with them. We would order them their birth certificate, and then once they got that, we would get them their social security card, their ID. So when they got out, they had all their documents ready.
Right.
And then they would, if they were at the Tri-Rail station, because most of them would take the Tri-Rail, the train back to West Palm, we would pick them up that very morning. Or sometimes I would pick up guys at 11 o'clock at night. You know, some other people would be like, oh, boundaries, tell them to wait there till the morning. I'm like, no, I'm not making someone wait at a tri-rail. So
not at our tri-rail station.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, they might not make the trip.
They might find some trouble in that couple hours out there.
So I would pick them up and then we would take them to our reentry housing in Boynton Beach. And then they would start their journey from there. And a lot of them, I'm being honest, man, people being released from prison are more adept to actually get a job and do better because they're like fresh. If they're in recovery, they haven't probably used anything in a while.
Yeah.
So it gives them a chance. But if you just throw them out on the street, dude, and then you wonder why recidivism's like, what, 75% for prisoners?
It's crazy.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but people need support to get on their feet, you know, and if we ever want to make this world a better place, we need to start taking care of individuals who have, you know, are vulnerable, period, whatever it is. So I think that's really, really cool. I think that's a fun job. It's something that I actually connected with a girl who goes into DJJ, I think through NAMI. And so we're actually going to go there next week. And I'm so excited because, okay, I was in DJJ I wasn't there very long until I was direct filed, maybe a couple months but I don't remember what it looked like because I never seen the outside of it. I only saw the inside of it. Yeah. And the other day I actually drove by and I was like, wow, that's where I was in. Like, it's just so weird to not know the place where you lived for however long. And so I'm excited to go in there and see the kids and, you know, just try to make a little bit of a difference if I can and just tell them they can do it. And,
no, I hear that because it's like I remember going into like adult prison for the first time. So you go to the county, they sentence you, and then they sentence you to wherever you're going, and then you go to the like reception center. So in Cleveland, you go to Lorain Correctional Institution. If you're down south in like the south part of Ohio, you go to CRC, which is like somewhere near Columbus. So I went to Lorain Correctional. You sit there for about 30 to 90 days, and then they classify you to whatever like prison you're going to. Once they classify you, then they put you on a Bluebird bus, and you got to cross arms with the guy next to you. So you're sitting on this bus, and then you're handcuffed. So your like arm is locked into his arm like this. And when you get there, they take you in this room, and there's 20 to 30 of you in this little room, probably the size of this room. And they say, all right, strip naked. And you got to strip naked with 30 other men. Everybody's covering their shit because it's like so awkward. And it's like, you know, just treat it like crazy. It's like they treat you like you're literally an animal.
Right.
And that fucks you up in the head because then you think that being treated like that is like not okay, but it's like, it just messes with your psyche.
Yeah, you maybe start acting like it a little bit more. You know, we act how we're treated, I feel sometimes. And I think sometimes when we, you know, it's like when we, if we offer housing to individuals and that housing is a shithole that, you know, is dirty and has roaches and all that stuff, that's not going to make that person live a life that is going to see the sunrise every morning at Lake Worth Beach at 5 a.m. and exercising. Like, I think it really messes with a person's psyche.
No, it does. And then moving from there, it's like, what do we do next? You know, like we got this person into somewhere and then, they have a case manager, but is that case manager like going to do what they're supposed to do or are they going to connect them to what they're supposed to connect them to? And then we wonder why there's like a revolving door sometimes. Then again, it also matters who the person is and do they want to be better? Yeah. You know, because we can't save anybody.
No. And so, you know, speaking of that, what do you think is the main, how do you think we can help the chronically homeless better?
Oh, man.
It's a tough one. It's a really hard question. It's something I think about every day, but why not? You know, we're the two that are, we're there every day.
We're there. So to me, I think number one, we have to tailor our plans specifically to the individual and we have to have the housing to put them into that has those services like at the snap of a finger.
Right.
We can't just put somebody somewhere and say, oh, well, you got an appointment to see a therapist in 3 weeks from now. Because in that 3 weeks, they're going to turn that place into a flop house. There's going to be prostitution going on there.
Right.
Because they're mentally, you know, not
They haven't changed. They were just outside doing those things. You know, we're just putting them inside.
So I think the housing piece is huge, but to have programs, not just like a sporadic apartment, like to have a place where they can go and they have staff on hand.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's going to be like a jail where they can't leave, but it has to be some type of structure where they have to do a certain type of something in the morning and then in the afternoon, and they have to do employment services and they have to see a therapist if that's what they want.
Right.
And you know, treat everything that's underlying and those underlying issues. Because if we don't treat those, and then number one, we need to hire more peers at all these organizations to do the homeless outreach.
Tell them, Joey.
That's what we need to do.
And I agree, because really they need to be, it's being rehabilitated. You know, if you've lived outside for 10, 20 years and you have just been surviving, and a lot of these individuals are on disability or they receive some sort of government check, which I think really takes away from their daily purpose, which I think is detrimental to their mental health and detrimental to their success. And I think they really need a reason to wake up other than to drink a beer or hang out at the park. And we need to be able to offer that. And I know we've had conversations about housing first. And I guess for me, the reason why I don't think housing first doesn't work, but for us right now, I feel like it's not working because there is no housing to put them in first. And the housing available is just not something these individuals, I believe, will be able to sustain long term. And still, they're, like you said, in kind of a random apartment sometimes without all those wraparound services, easily accessible.
Yep.
I mean, when things are a process, even for me, I'm like, I'm all right.
Yeah. I think it's more of like a readiness model too, because you know, people see the chronically homeless dude panhandling. Man, that dude been out there for 15 years, bro. Right. And you're just gonna tell him, come with me, I'm gonna stick you in an apartment. Right. But you don't know anything about him. That guy, it might take you years to break through that shell, if you ever do. Right. You know what I mean? But then the person who couldn't pay their rent and it went up $700, that person doesn't score high enough on the assessment. Now they might become chronically homeless.
Right, I know, and that's something me and you talk about all the time. And I hope that they listen to us and they offer up those couple beds for the individuals that are ready and willing at that moment to go in, because there is a big difference.
It's a huge difference to like
those two. They're just different people. Different groups.
To divert somebody from the homeless system is like the big. That's the goal, man. Yeah. You don't want people to become that guy who's on the corner of the park bench for 10 years, you know? But if you don't do something to implement it, then that's what's going to happen. Yeah. And then you wonder why. But like for those of us who have been homeless, and I have friends who have been homeless for like 10 years, and you wouldn't even be like, people are like, you've been homeless?
I know.
You've been a junkie?
Right.
Like you used to smoke crack? Like, bro, I did. And that's the point of being in recovery is that I don't look like the same person. I know I'm not that person anymore.
Someone told me, people say, you don't look like a junkie. You don't even look like whatever. I'm like, bitch, that's the point. What are you talking about? Like, thank God, if I still look like that 14 years later, then you should commit me. I have a mental problem then, because I want to, and it took me a long time, because even I remember being in early recovery and being like, they're making me soft. And I was so upset about this like softness that they were all pushing on me to be like. I hated it. I hated the idea. And, so, you know, now, but I obviously what they call a psychic change. What do they say? Mine was not quick. Some people have like these things that change their life and they become different people. Like that was not my story. Mine happened very slowly over a long period of time. I started to slowly not wear men's basketball shorts and tank tops every day, you know, and gold chains or you know, whatever. So, and then I started to walk, you know, not like I'm in a gang. And then I started to think about others and not always just myself. And to the point where now I look, act, talk, and walk completely different than I used to. And that is what that is. Yeah. Right.
And I tell you what, I was at a gas station, and when I first came to Florida, I was like scared to go back to certain places in Cleveland because I had done a lot of bad things to people, and they were probably still like looking for me. Pissed off. So I would be careful, but it's been a long time now. And I think it was like 2 years ago, I was at a gas station that I used to frequent, and I go there and I'm pumping gas.